Problems are going to happen in life and in business and your everyday living. And oftentimes it will dictate how the rest of your day or your week or your month or your year goes, depending on how much you let it affect your mind. And so when you hear or say problem in our business, you generally will quickly hear,
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us. Hey guys, welcome to another podcast here with the Lewis Brothers. We've got an exciting one this week to really dive into. And we've always got different topics and everything, but this one popped up. We really like the idea of it, but it's problem-solving mindset. There's two different ways you can go there, but it's turning the positive mindset, making the positive mindset into an opportunity. And then it's about evaluating, executing, and holding your team accountable. So we'll really dive through all of that and deep dive into different situations. But Shelby, what happened last week?
Last week, if you didn't tune in, it was episode 13. Reel it back. Go listen to it. We talked about workplace education, not only education within our workplace, continued education. Is it worth spending the money, or is the person going to take the education and run off? And you just lost it and started back on square one? Or should you go to college, or should you go to trade school? Basically, essentially everything we knew within education and what we've learned, we broke it down and kind of went through that. So we spent a good hour talking about that, episode 13. Tune back into that. But hey, we're jumping back into this one. Don't forget to visit our website, lewissuperstore.com. You'll see our latest specials, what's going on. As we wrap up this year, Section 179, you might need a tax advantage, or you might just be saying, hey, I might need to upgrade my ride. We're talking about 90 to 120 days, no payments. That's getting deep, about to the summer. And then we're talking about year-end savings. So don't forget that.
Yeah, there's some big ones out there. And a lot of people, guys, we've heard it for a long time because we grew up in the business. We're like, wait till the end of the year. The best deals are at the end of the year. Well, you picked it.
Yeah.
You picked it because supplies come up some. The manufacturers have come out with discounts. We've come out with tons of Lewis reasons why to buy. You hit it on there. No payments till after the first year. So get through those holidays. You can spend some money on that stuff. But some of our savings that came out during Black Friday, we've continued to roll in some additional ones for year end. And we're talking about $15,000, $17,000, even $20,000 off spending.
And some of them stack with interest rates.
Yes, huge. We're talking big money off there.
If you don't, and I'll do a plug for this just to educate everybody, if you don't know what Section 179 is, it's for businesses, large, small, and even side hustles.
Yeah.
Even if you just have fruits and vegetables at the farmer's market and you put it on there, or some goats or chicken houses or whatever it may be, or Uber, you can qualify for Section 179 and take up to 100% of accelerated depreciation. That means the purchase price of the vehicle, if you paid $60,000 for it, against your personal taxes owed this year.
I love lowering the taxes that are owed, and this is what.
So that's on new and that's on used vehicles. You can reach out to us. We can get farther in depth there on what qualifies and what doesn't.
If you've got a quick afternoon, Matt can go in depth in a spreadsheet that'll really make sense.
Hey, just for disclaimer purposes, we
are not attorneys.
We're not, but we love trying to connect you with people that can help save you money. Hey, as we dive in today, this is one of my favorite topics, and it's been ingrained into us. It's natural to us, and we have to remember when we're talking to the audience here that we've been taught this for a long time, and everybody else naturally is not this way, which gives us a competitive advantage. But we're talking about problem solving, which starts in the mind as a mindset. And we call this throughout the dealership, you'll hear us say this, but solution-based attitudes. Solution-based attitudes where problems do come up.
Problems are going to happen in life and in business and your everyday living. And oftentimes it will dictate how the rest of your day or your week or your month or your year goes, depending on how much you let it affect your mind. And so when you hear or say problem in our business, you generally will quickly hear, let me find you a solution.
Man, you set me exactly up, and we had not even talked about that, where As business owners and leaders, we've flipped it on its head because we know that an issue or a problem is going to come up. And instead of everybody being scared and going, what do I do now? I don't know what to do. They have confidence with us going, hey, this is a solution-based culture. And as long as I bring some ideas, I might not have the answer, but as long as I bring some ideas to management or ownership, they will help me walk through this because we're problem solvers. And if you get that mindset, your team, and you'll hear this throughout today's podcast, but if your team knows that we are problem solvers, we're not scared of if an issue's going on or we got to adjust or something hits the fan, these guys are going to walk through how do we find out a solution. And here's the big part, not only for today, but in the future too. Don't just put the fire out today, figure out what caused it so you can prevent it from happening in the future.
And that's kind of one of those things we talked about in episode 10 about is the customer always right? And the most fun that we get to do is to take a situation and then make a best friend or a raving fan. And it's no different than with a problem.
That's right. So as we dive into this first part, we're going to dissect problem solving to help you. How do we identify it? Is it real? Then what action is taken? And then how do we make sure that we've put the processes in place and the accountability so then it doesn't happen again? See, I'm okay, guys, if somebody messes up or if there's a problem once, but if it happens again, shame on me for not identifying what needed to be adjusted, whether it was a job role or whether it was a process. All of it can kind of root back to a certain issue. So with a whole solution-based attitude, I'm going to ask you guys to help define for us, how do we identify that it's really not a problem and not just that somebody's just wanting to be heard or vent?
You got to listen.
Yeah.
So Taylor, when somebody brings you an issue, how do you take the time and questions you ask to figure out, is this really an issue or is this employee or this customer just having a bad day?
I think you have to listen. Shelby hit the nail on the head there. And whenever you're going through, because you got to really think of your process of how you've put it in place, of how it needs to be able to be played out or anything else. And whenever you're walking through that scenario, you really got to obviously listen through their whole side of it, of thinking in your head, hey, how would I have handled this situation, and play it through your head whenever you're going through it. And a lot of times, more often than not, you hit the nail on the head of it was a lazy process. It was a bad handoff. Even though we set this up to be able to do that, it's a constant reminder that we have great culture, we have great processes, but more and more you have to go back and inspect it because that gets dropped all the time of that it is lazy and the process is there and they just weren't doing it because you weren't checking on them.
No, that makes sense. And Shelby, I'll kick it over here to you. Let's say a manager is bringing you a problem. What process do you walk them through to see, is this something we need to address, or am I just being a good listener?
It's funny that you say that because that happens often, right? And so one, you have to realize what's the root cause. Where are you talking? Are you hearing it from the horse's mouth? Where the problem was, or you're hearing it from the person who echoed the problem, who just likes telling it stuff. And so you got to realize, where did it come from? And so if they're that person, then I'm going to say, walk me through this.
Yeah.
And more often than not, whether it's a customer or an employee and a manager, I'll sit back and ask questions and take notes, and they'll generally tell you. Now, it could be one, and it always is our fault. That's what we'll say, right?
Sure.
So take the pressure off. It's not always our fault. Spoiler. But we'll take the pressure off you so you feel comfortable explaining. And so I'll say, yeah, absolutely, walk me through that. And I can't believe you were so calm, and walk me through that. They'll generally tell you the root cause, and a lot of times it's they didn't do X.
Yes.
Didn't communicate, or we should have done this. The customer asked me to do that, and I didn't. And so by the end, say, okay, I just want to recap this. And so then you read back to them, and you'll see it right on the paper, and you'll say, so it looks like we just failed to communicate in this scenario. And so then that led to 3 days of a customer not knowing.
Yes.
And so that's our issue right there. Now, how can I help you? I would say, Matt, how can I help you make sure that you have a reminder, so for your next 20 customers today, that you don't have to overthink that this reminder pops up? Is there a system that you've turned off that we use? Like, are you not getting notifications? So then they brought me a problem, and they were just mad about the lube bay not getting it done, but it wasn't the lube bay's fault. They didn't communicate it.
That's right.
Like we had, I'll tell you real world, we had a customer the other day, a good customer of ours, had a check engine light come on their vehicle. And check engine lights will come on and off and on and off. And if you bring it in and the check engine light's off, we cannot duplicate that. Sometimes it has history in the PCM.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, it does not. So a customer brought it in, and he knew that if he turned it off, it would go away because he'd had that issue. So he told the service advisor and the assistant service advisor, hey, here's the issue. Please do not turn it off. You need to hook your computer directly to it without turning it off. Well, because we have such a large team and so many hands involved, and my parts manager was just telling me this morning, that vehicle left the service drive, went straight over to the lube rack because it needed an oil change. And the system said it needed a PCM reflash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somewhere the communication got dropped to not turn the car off. And so not only did we turn the car off because the PCM reflash says turn the car off, cycle the key back on, don't start the vehicle. So we turned it off.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote it all over the RO and put a line item. And somewhere there was just too many hands in the jar. Mm. And so not only did we turn it off, we reflashed the PCM, which means we erased everything, every code. And so the customer said, what part of that did you not get?
Wow.
And so, we had to go above and beyond. It was an opportunity for them to say, okay, let us drive around for a while. If you don't mind, we'll put some diesel in it, fill it up for you. And when there's a problem, we can handle it. We can then adjust from it. I apologize. We dropped the ball. Let us take care of it. Can we clean your car for you while it's here? So that was the solution to it, but the problem happens. And so you just listen, dissect, and then you can they'll generally tell you what the problem was and how really severe it is.
It is. I'm going to pause right here for all the leaders out there and the managers. You need to understand something. As we're talking through these scenarios like Shelby just went over and Taylor just went over, we're involved in those. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple mindsets as a business owner or upper management you can have. Because let's be honest, you're paying those people to do their job.
Yes.
And instant reaction inside, you want to be like, figure it out. That's what I pay you to do.
Yep.
But if you take that mindset and you don't, the first couple times, walk them through how to go through this, guess what happens? As stuff flows downhill, they repeat and act however you do at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if somebody comes in your office with an issue or calls you with an issue in your business and you're like, I pay you good money to figure these out, go figure it out. They're going to then go to their crew and say, we pay you good money, figure it out.
So the ultimatum, because I totally get that. And there's plenty of TikToks or Reels that I've seen that says, you go tell HR, hey, go hire me 5 new people and I need them by Monday. And the HR guy says, hey, I don't know how I'm going to do that. He said, well, you either figure it out or we're going to need to figure something else out because that's what I pay you for. So then he figures out a way to figure it out. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then you flip it on its other side, and this is reality. And sir, if they knew how to do that,
yes,
at your level, they would have your job.
They would.
You wouldn't need your job because they would have your job because they'd already have it figured out. They're at the level that they're at because that's where they're currently at. So slow down and break it down for them.
If you go back to one of the other episodes, and I'll kick it to you.
Right. You're right.
We go through what are the 3 things before you can let somebody go.
Time,
tools, and training necessary. So the same thing, it flows down if you're not training your managers. Now, yes, should they be able to handle things and you pay them good money? Absolutely. But you have to teach them the things that the textbooks don't about being a good listener, taking notes, helping train them on how to identify what the root cause of the problem is so then you can fix it. Too many people have a knee-jerk reaction, okay? And it's the front part of your brain where you just have that fight or flight mentality and they try to Band-Aid it really quick instead of listening and gathering some information. And 99 times out of 100, it's the wrong solution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Absolutely. I just had to recap because I love what Shelby talked about there. That's a quick insight of how we manage business, of how we don't scream, we don't yell, we don't cuss. We get stern whenever we need to. But if you've never done this in a coaching moment of what Shelby was talking about, writing it down and repeating it back, it is so much stronger to be able to read back opportunities that were missed that is like blatant, hey, I can't believe I made that wrong turn. If you yelled at them and did all this other and cussed and everything else, they're just going to be mad and carry it on, like Matt said, to the rest of your team. But if you use their own words, calmly walk through it, diffuse the situation, say this is how we're going to change, but use their own words of how they told you what was wrong, it's power. It's got to be 5x whatever would be you going over. So it's so powerful.
They're going to do that then with their employee. They're going to do that with their customer.
Yeah.
You know, or their family, or their surroundings, or their peers, and it's so calming when problem generally means chaos. You know, I don't know what the definition would say, but there would be chaos or turmoil or anger, and I'm like, hey, Mrs. Smith, come on over here. Let's sit and talk about this.
Yeah, that's huge. A quote I heard the other day, and it's crazy we went over this, but positive thinking creates positive culture. Negative will create more of negative solutions. So you have that positive thinking, there's always going to be opportunities you can turn to something else. If you have that negative culture, it's going to create more negative situations that are going to come out.
And I'm gonna give a tip out to some of y'all that maybe have a mindset like I do, because I've really had to work on this. Is I have such a solution-based mindset and problem solving that as soon as I hear an issue or somebody brings something up, I instantly want to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes the people just need to be heard.
That is very important, and I'll tell you why it's really important, because people will not always give me honest feedback, especially in our business. They'll just listen no matter what you say. They might not be listening, but they'll listen. So our wives generally will, right? Will tell us exactly what we need to hear. And we'll tell each other what we need to hear, whether we like it or not. But my wife sometimes like, hey, can you just be on my side for a second? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I apologize. I went straight to problem solving. It was because it looks like, if I break it down real quick, because we missed this, and this, and this. It's just like, hey, can you just say, hey, I totally get it. I understand. I was like, oh, yep, hang on. I forgot to detune. I know it's 9 o'clock, but I hadn't got my work shirt off. Let me take it off and let's try that again.
But that happens in business too, where sometimes, and I'm very guilty of this, I get so far down the road of like fixing A, B, and C, it was like, maybe it didn't need to be fixed. They just needed to be heard and felt valued.
So that's where what you're saying is breaking that down, realizing that there really maybe was not a problem. There was just a execution misunderstanding.
Yep.
And so then understanding the difference there.
So in our culture, we've worked really hard to go, hey, it's okay if there's an issue, because that's the only way we grow. Previous episodes we've talked about, it's okay to not keep doing something. In our case, 78 years worth of doing something that got us to where we are right now, but may not get us to where we want to go. Yep. And that's okay. Yep. That's okay. We know employees can bring us problems, but they need to be ready to talk about solutions, and they know they're going to be engaged in that. We're not going to say, hey, turn to page 103 in your employee handbook, and it's right there on how to fix it, because there's too many variables there. The next piece I want to talk about is peeling back the layer of the onion we talk about. And these are things that we do on a daily basis that we're trying to share with everybody. And they're just basics of business and employees and people. So when we talk about peeling back the layers of the onion, you have to be able to get somebody's mind and their mental capacity to slow down from that knee-jerk reaction and actually figure out what actually is the root cause of that problem or that issue. And the only way to identify that is when they come to a leader as yourself and you listen to them and you ask a question. You listen some more, you ask another question. And we're peeling back the layers of the onion to make sure that we identify the correct issue before we put our game plan together.
Yeah, and so I love stories, right? Because they're real and it's what makes sense and it helps me relate. And sometimes I just like telling them. So I'll give you a story of peeling the onion back and understanding that, the layers of it. So roughly our shops right now run just under 4,000 ROs a month through them. Yeah, it's a whole lot, repair orders. So you bring your car in to get the oil change or needs a new engine. Those are all repair orders. We have a very strong technician growth program. And those technicians always generally start out as an apprentice for an oil change person, right? Yep. And so we have teams, and we've learned from that because If you waste an opportunity to grow or to learn or to change, it will bite you. So we've had a very few, if you think about the 4,000 month opportunities where someone's left and they said, hey, you forgot to put drain plug back in car.
Sure.
You forgot to put oil in the car, and you forgot to put the lug nuts back on the car, right? They're generally just handling those items. And if it's just your car, you say, how in the world would that ever happen? But 4,000 cars ran through there. So after having a couple angry customers, upset customers, which are rightfully so, of a tire falling off going down the road, is 100% our responsibility. I remember having these conversations with the technician, with the foreman, with the advisor, and the service manager. Say, let's break this whole process down. Let's pull a car in here and show me what you do.
Absolutely.
And so we had to peel it back to really see here. So now we have teams. There's 2 people, and every person inspects the other person's work. They're not just sitting there like a supervisor and road crew. They're, okay, you take the lug nuts off. Okay, where'd you put them? Let me check these lug nuts. Are they cross-threaded or are they swollen? And then inspect the brakes. So when we put it back together, he's checking the lug nuts. He checks it on his sheet. So then the guy comes back and checks. And then there's a foreman over that, because that was a small issue that related to a very large issue, but it was a small percentage. And then once we peeled it back and really found that this is where we want to grow our technicians from, and they might have just come from the Jiffy Lube or just want a good job but have a winning attitude and want to be part of a good team, we can't expect them to be master technicians.
Hey, a great takeaway there that you hit on that hope everybody grabbed a hold of is, you heard about the problem. You maybe even had a meeting in your office with our service director or service manager. And then you said, hey, let's go down to the department. Let's not say anything. And let's say, hey, walk me through, grab a car, throw it in there, walk me through the process. Don't try to solve it until you actually see what's going on. Not what you think's going on, what's actually going on. And that's what you did. Because then you could see, okay, this is moving here, it's moving there, this is what they're doing. There it is.
You can see it right there. It's like, he did never come and check the lug nuts again.
That's so important. I'll tell you another one that people deal with. You might be listening out there going, okay, well, we don't have vehicles we're pulling in, pulling out. We're really not dealing with customers' complaints. Well, let's talk about when somebody no-shows. So if you've got somebody in a department that, I don't want to say no-show, they were sick or something was going on. They can't make it to work that day, and your department's already really skinny, you know what I mean? Meaning you're stretched really thin, and your whole department's like, whoa, what do I do? They're about to lose their minds and nobody's doing anything. Taylor, I know that'll happen sometimes with delivery.
Yes.
With delivery.
Yep.
So walk them through some scenarios or what you would do as far as like employee coverage or for finance or this or that.
Absolutely. We've ran into, and we're very flexible, obviously, and creating that culture of being able to, in sales, it's probably a little bit easier to pivot than obviously a parts or service or anything else, because that's what you're doing all the time. But of a circumstance of finance being able to be out of because they're sick or anything else, you're able to pivot and move. You have to have obviously a manager in place that can move and be a chameleon of any area. That's the biggest point. So whenever you're having anyone in your system, your setup of your tree, of your hierarchy, call it, they've got to be able to pivot and go to different places. So whenever you're moving that person up, you have to have somebody that is malleable into different situations. That's the one way that you're able to handle that, because one, they can either step in and delegate, or two, be able to help the situation themselves. And there's no better way to say it than they have to be. It's no different than our story. If you go all the way back to episode 1 or 2 of why we have went through the business completely, is so that you can get in there and be able to help train and help put people in the situations so that way they're able to continue on, because the last person we want to suffer, you want to suffer, is the customer. The customer, now don't let this hurt your feelings or anything. They don't care if you're sick.
They don't know.
They're not mad, and they're not going to say, I hope you get sick. But we talked about this in office or accounting or anything else or in finance. They they just want their paperwork. They want to continue on with what they're doing. So we cannot let the customer suffer.
You really can't. That's a great point there is the customer, whether they're human beings and they have feelings, but still they're here, they need the service that they're paying for or the vehicle they're paying for. So to help identify that, so as you sit down as a manager and two people have not shown up in a department, it's your job to peel the layers back, let that manager, that supervisor, that shift leader know, like, hey, I'm here with you. It's okay. We're going to walk through this. You can identify somebody's got some idle time somewhere else that can cross over. You can take some of the monotonous stuff off.
That's one of the things, and recapping that is cross-train and prepare a battle before it's time for war.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're talking about completely here, is what you just said is we've created the culture where our team has confidence that, like, hey, even if there's an issue, we're prepared for that.
And that's something that we say every single KIG day, or at least that's generally the idea when we hand out Employee of the Month. And the one thing that I'll always say, because I know it's important, because we're janitors, why can't everybody else be janitors? To say, I don't ever want to hear anyone say that's not my job. So then if we can cross-train, so a person knows how to do this, knows how to do that, knows how to do this, and we run through the gamut constantly of, hey, can you help me with this delivery, or can you help me with this, or hey, do you mind jumping over here and doing this? And so then when it's time for, like, you got to call an audible, it's like, oh, hey, he's good at kicking. Put him in there. Let him kick.
It's depth.
It's depth.
It's depth. And if you don't cross-train before you get in the battle, then guess who's the one who's the depth?
You are.
You.
Oh, and you're just sitting there looking. So we're not saying go hire a bunch more people. We're just saying make sure you train across shore people so that they can be multiple facets.
Because the number one thing we look into whenever we're like, oh, we need to hire, it's always a reminder. I know y'all have pushed me to be able to do this. So, hey, go through your team. Make sure your team of every person you have in every position is being utilized to the best of their capability. And if they're not, pull them aside and say, hey, I need you to help me over here. Start cross-training so they're available to do that. But then also you're squeezing that juice for everything that it's got there before you add more people on.
That's been a great discussion so far, and we'll keep diving into there next subject coming up of once we identify the root cause and what are the actions we take after that. But a quick break right here to get to our automotive fun fact quiz of the week. Hey, this is a good one this week. What has been the highest miles tracked on a vehicle? The highest miles tracked on a vehicle. A is 500,000. B is 1.2 million miles, and C is 2.850 million miles. That's a lot of miles.
That's a lot of miles. That's a lot of tires, a lot of brakes, a lot of oil changes, whether it be 500. It's more than 500,000, I'll tell you that. But that's a lot. I don't want to drive that far.
It's pretty darn far.
That is a lot of miles there. Continue on and diving into, so we've talked about obviously acknowledging the situation, how you control the situation, how you redirect any of the path and make sure you're enabling the rest of your team there. But let's go over there. Kind of everyone has to be aligned in your team. The group has to be together.
So the first step is you hear the concern from, let's talk about it from an employee point of view real quick. You hear the concern from the employee. All right. So they need to be heard. That's number one. Number two, it's your job to peel back the layers of the onion to identify the root cause.
Yeah.
And they got to go in that order. They got to be heard first, just like you said.
Yeah.
With your wife saying, like, mine does the same thing. Like, hang on, get out of that mode. Is they need to be heard. You get the root issue. Then you start putting your game plan together of how do we fix that?
Yeah.
And that might be a fix if it's just two employees that didn't show up for the day. That's just a temporary fix.
Well, and to pause you there, you need to fix the current situation at hand, and then you need to fix the process.
What caused
that, right? So you have to realize there's two different fixes that have to happen. If there's a customer waiting, or if there's an issue, or someone called in, or we didn't tighten the lug nuts, don't try to fix the process then. That's two phases.
Yeah, you got to plug. There's a hole in the boat.
Yeah.
You got to plug it.
Yep.
And we got to finish this journey, and then we're going to pull it out of the water and actually fix the hole.
Absolutely.
And actually fix the hole. So good point there, Shelby, is like, all right, we have this situation right now. Is it with an employee? Is it with a customer? Let's temporarily fix that. Now the root part, let's put the game plan together so we have a contingency plan next time, we have depth next time, or we just fix the overall issue that's going on. You know, we talked a few weeks back about when we identified the issue in service with all the extended warranty companies.
Yeah.
If you'll remember that, about the amount of time that it takes with all those extended warranty companies to call in a claim. Well, that was an issue. We needed to get the customer's vehicle fixed that was there right that second.
Yeah.
But then that was reoccurring. How do we fix that? Well, assistants came in, warranty clerks came in. We removed that off of the advisors to then have a clear path going forward. If you don't fix the root cause, though, guess what happens? Replay.
Yes,
happens going.
And I guess this is a good point, a good spot to segue this and to talk about it. If depending on where you are in your business or in leadership, this might or might not apply, but some people get hung up in what's their role or what's their responsibility, you know, wherever you are on the hierarchy or the chart. And here's one of those things, like you have your doers, like think about your direct line directly to consumer. And then you have your managers over the doers, and then you might have managers of the managers.
Sure.
And so to be a good, effective leader, you have to be enough involved with a direct-to-person
Sure.
to hear the real what's going on, keeping your thumb to the ground. And so then you know your employees, you know your manager of the employees, and then you're the manager of the manager, so call it. But then understand that's where you get to be away from the customer a little bit in dissecting, and you get to help problem solve. And you say, hey, real quick, let me walk you through this. So you go, if you're the manager of the manager, the store manager, office manager, whatever it may be, then you get to go back and get some input from them so that you have buy-in from them. And then you get to go back to your desk, dissect all the stuff, close the door, whatever you need to do, and really come up with, because it has to follow your culture. It has to follow your process. It has to be something that's affordable and makes sense. And then you get to go back to the team because they need to continue to generate revenue, right?
Yes.
They need to continue to take care of consumers, and they would have a hard time seeing out of the forest when they're buried in
They're not going to.
right? So then you, as a manager of a manager, get to help them solve the problem, plug the boat, and then you get to back away and say, okay, you know, think about a detective. They start putting faces and names and locations and connecting all the dots, and they say they're away from it, and they're like, I got it.
Yep.
And then these things build a business plan and a sustainable business model.
Yes.
You know, it's no different than we will every 3 months go to a 20 group meeting. And so we get to get away from it and we hear from other dealers. And we're like, here it is right there. That was it right there. And so then you get to come back into it and say, hey, I know you guys had a hard time with this, and this. This is going to blow your mind that we never knew this, but this is the fix right here.
That's very important. I'm going to walk the listeners through just a quick scenario. The story you told about oil change and talking about the tire rotation and the lug nuts. When you start looking at the layers there, you've got Shelby, and then you've got a fixed, you've got a service director, and then underneath them you've got a service manager. Then you have a foreman over the quick lube, and then you have those employees. So that's 4 layers deep. Yeah, you could clearly see and have an understanding, but to double check that the advice you're given was the correct advice, you said, let's go down to the department. So let's go 4 layers down. Let's not ask them how to fix it. Let's just ask them to show us the process. Because I'm not going to ask somebody that's in the middle of the forest that obviously if they knew how to fix it, they would have already fixed it.
Yeah.
They're the ones that made the error.
Yeah.
But you took the time to say, show me what's going on here, all right? And then you took layer 1, layer 2 in your office with you, and you said, okay, that's what we saw down there.
Yeah.
All right, here's how we fix it.
Yes.
That's very important.
So then as a manager of managers, that's what you get to do. People more often than not, like we had a new employee the other day in the office that confused Taylor and I, was like, hey, who's doing what and this and that. And so, and so someone asked, so what'd you think that Shelby did?
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's a Lewis. He's just around here.
Yeah.
And I laugh at that.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that you get to do, and it's so much fun because it's a problem and it's an issue, and it's not all of that, right? But people are doing good. You high five, tell them good job, put it on social media so people want to be part of the fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the problems and the issues and the efficiencies, like, hey, we're at 110, let's see if we can get to 112, 114. That's what, as a manager of managers, you get to work on that and then go back to the team with, hey, here's a new game plan.
Yes.
We've won 3 Super Bowls. Here's how we're going to have to win 4.
I think the majority of people listening out here, you're entrepreneurs, you're really good problem solvers. But what the next step you may need to do is have you taught the rest of your team that. If something gets to your level, if you get a phone call or an email or an employee in your office, you know how to fix it. You are solution-based. That got you to where you are, let's just be honest. But have you taken the time to teach everybody else how to fish? Yeah, you can do a great job at it. But what we're talking about is you then get those people involved, those managers, and you lead by example.
Yeah.
Now, if the lug nuts come off again, that's not the same process because you've torn it down, you've come up with it, we're then revisiting to try to figure out what's going on. So, Taylor, kind of as you brought up there, we're clarifying the issue. We're making sure we go look at it. We've got the right people involved. We've asked the correct questions to identify what the concern may be. So we've invested time to multiply a better output down the road.
Yep. And I think a thing to recap on that whole, that you'd went over there, I expounded upon, y'all dove into there. As you're growing, you hit the nail on the head I was just listening to there. As you're growing, you know how to do it. You know how to be successful. You know where to pivot. You know where to audible. You know how to do it all. But you have to do this, and we've ran into this. We love being a part of it and everything else, but we have great customers, and they say, hey, the ball was dropped here. The ball was dropped there. They're saying, hey, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And we're continuing to grow in that aspect because you have to do constant managing, letting your team know expectations of, hey, I want this, this, and this. And you got to circle back around. I'm not saying to be monotonous and just micromanage, but you have to, as Shelby was talking about, being in the middle of it and being on top of and enabling other people that you had talked about. Hey, so that was a great topic there of going over, but we got to get back to our fun fact of the day because that was pretty wild what you were talking about.
It was big.
Austin. So what has been the highest miles tracked on a vehicle? Do you have any guesses or anything? I'm going to have
$500,000,
out there.
1.2 or 2.8.
Yeah.
I'm with Shelby. It's got to be over 500,000. We've seen too many of them there.
Oh, yeah.
What is
was 2.85 million miles. At that point, I'm just going to be sitting on a car. There's not anything left on the body or anything over there for us.
It had to be something like that.
Or that one guy we used to have, probably the highest mileage one we've seen is a delivery man. They had the man that was $600,000, maybe an express or something. Yeah.
That or Clint Baker and all his.
One of the two, there was a lot there. So huge topic there.
All right, so third piece we'll dive into problem solving. We're talking problem solving. Some of this might all seem the same to you, but I assure you it's different and understanding the layers. And we're talking about executing accountability and evaluation of that. And understand that because we talked a little bit about that of pushing down the hill, not pushing the problem down the hill, but understanding that people have power. And so that's one of the big things that we will talk about and one of the big values that not only we see Lewis on the building as one of the oldest, largest family-owned stores in Arkansas, but you also find a Lewis in the building. So there's a pretty big benefit to that we can always help you out, and we love to be a part of it. There's a downside to that, you as a consumer. Taylor was thinking as himself, as we all were. But as a consumer, it is super tough. If you think about those 4,000 ROs plus over 500 vehicles purchased a month, I'd feel like, I don't know who, but somebody just shaking a lot of hands, kissing a lot of babies. That'd be like Will Ferrell's that signed the wrong baby or something. But so a cool thing that we've done to empower our employees to be able to do what?
Now, to be able to fix some of the problems. And once you get to a certain size, that's also a downfall of ours. And you brought up that the other day about the girls in the office asking that. People see us everywhere in the middle of everything, which is great. But then at the same time, it doesn't empower the others. So what you're hitting on there, as we have then empowered some managers, depending upon which department they're in, with some more ability, let's call it. You know, we've given them ability to fix this or take care of that. Now, you've got to define that.
Yes.
It's not an open check for everybody. So you have to give some guidelines, and especially like on used vehicles and some other things, we have put dollar amounts to that and time. How long ago did they purchase it?
Yeah.
What is the repair?
Yeah.
You can't use this, customer satisfaction fund to fix the dent that they just ran into something.
Yeah.
So you have to clearly define that if you're going to open up and give them those resources.
Yeah, and so that's a thing. So once we've identified the problem, we've plugged the hole in the boat, we've created the new fix for it.
Yes.
Then we have to get it out to the team, and we have to show them the new game plan. And then what is the most important part? After you give them the new game plan, what do you have to do after that to make sure it's successful?
You've got to keep them accountable. So you've got to come back around. You've got to inspect that.
So inspect what you expect. You can't just plug it in and just it's not a Christmas.
It doesn't work that way, and that's not how people. That's why we have managers. If you go back and listen to a previous episode, if every employee did exactly what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't have to have the layers of managers. So you have to be able to go back around. You got to calendar it up and go, okay, we figured this out. We've been just recently going through this in the office.
Yes.
And we'll have a meeting usually on Tuesdays, and we go, here were the problems. Here's what we identified. Let's look at the job roles, blah, blah, blah. We're going to meet back next Tuesday and get the update of the progress. The next Tuesday, we'll have fixed a couple pieces. We ran into a couple other hiccups where we could be more efficient, and we keep going, and we inspect, and we bring the reports, and we look at it. And we're teaching the rest of the team how to do that too. Too many people out there come up with a problem and they say fix it, and 6 months later they never go back and inspect it. And in fact, it's gotten worse. And they just lose their lid.
Yeah.
And they're mad at everybody except themselves, and they should be mad at themselves.
It's no different than any habit change or anything else that you have to if it's a change, it's going to take, they say a habit change, it takes 90 to 100 days to create a new habit.
Yes.
So if you need to change something within your business, you're going to have to fully be involved with it. Give them the game plan. Here's how, a fitness coach says, hey, here's what you're going to eat. Here's how you're going to exercise. And they're going to say, I need you to send me your stats every single day.
Yep.
What was your workout? What'd you eat? And they're going to check in with you and say, all right, how are you feeling? How do we need to adjust? It's no different there, But Taylor, talk about we talked about this with handling difficult people. Is it just very clear? Here's the process and my way or the highway, or do we have to be adaptable?
No, you have to be adaptable on it. It's so important. If it's not important to you, it's not important to your team. And if you don't take that time, and there's a lot of things, being completely honest, there's a lot of things is not your favorite thing to do, whether it be in accounting or it be in customer management or it be in customer service, anything else, that is not going to be your most favorite to do. But I can tell you this, being in the midst of it all, of down with the customers and managers and salespeople and delivery and everything else, if you don't make it important, they're not going to care. So, you have to be able to go through, and this is probably where I look at my strong suit of being able to look at and talk with employees of really letting it all come in and just analyzing it all and be like, hey, no, this is a guideline we really need to follow.
Sure.
We really need to follow this, but have you tried this? Or have you tried that? If anything, learning multiple different streams of it, I know there's different ways to get there as long as you're staying on the same road. You have to be able to do that because this day and age, especially, I don't know what y'all did to me, but my current generation, I'll say my current because I can use my age because I am of that age, is a little difficult to deal with sometimes. And that's the group that we're adding to, and they have high expectations, which is great, but you've got to be able to manage that because if I go saying this is the way we're going to do it, I don't have anyone else on my team to be able to help me.
That's right.
It's just me. So I've got to be able to be where I can change the whole situation as far as the path that I want to go.
I think another point too, once you come back around to have that meeting to inspecting what you expect, be willing and be ready to, if some adjustments need to be made.
Yeah.
Because everybody might have come up with a solution, and a lot of times when the rubber hits the road and it gets out there in the real world, it didn't go exactly as smooth as you thought. So be ready to adjust for some more feedback there.
Yeah.
Not to throw it out the window, but how do you adjust?
No, but it's okay to do that too.
It is. And it's okay to say, hey, and generally I'll lead out with a new idea of like, hey, here's what we've come out with. Here's our new game plan. It was based on your guys' feedback.
Yes.
And so it was their idea with your tweaks because you're the manager of the manager, and say, hey, help me be adaptable. And that's not me saying I'm going to be loose and not hold you to it, but help me be adaptable. If you'll see that. And we did that a whole lot with the new store. I was like, hey, here's where everyone's parking. And here's how we're processing it. And then we moved it, and And it's okay. Like, it's okay to be wrong. And so then we went through that. The last point that I would say that we point out, and it's funny, we ran into our good buddy Mark Zweig on the way in here and talked about problem solving. He loved it because he's had Matt down plenty of times to talk to his students at the university. But what we talked about and laughed was the opportunity that it created. So talk about that a little bit.
So anytime you take a issue or a problem going on, it is an opportunity for you to show an employee or a customer why they came to you, either why they came to be employed by you or to do business with you, because your true colors come out in these situations where you get to have a raving fan or a raving employee because they said, you know what? They'll remember those. When something goes down or something goes wrong, you show that you care. You immediately take action for that situation.
Yep.
And then you also put something in place to show them that you're doing the best of your ability for it to not happen again. So it gives you an opportunity to make raving fans and a spotlight on your business, which we did. And that's what Mark was talking about, is when he had an issue with a vehicle, it was immediately that we were down there, had him a vehicle to drive, got it back, got it fixed up. And it was like, okay, no big deal. There was a problem, but he'll remember forever how we reacted to it.
And it wasn't necessarily, his story is not focused now on the screw up.
Correct.
Or the issue, whether it be our issue, the manufacturer issue, or our issue. It was how well you handled it. And we talk about that. And some people that like kill fast food, and it's funny, there's the people that are good at it, like, you check it and drive through window, like, hey, I think you forgot my fries.
Yes.
So mediocre and average people, what do? They get them their fries they forgot, and I say, hey, I apologize, we forgot your fries. The ones who kill it and win at it say, hey, let me get your bag back real quick for you. And they make a point of this and say, hey, I'm going to re-prepare your food so it's all hot and ready, make sure it's ready to go. So I'm going to re-inspect that, and then I'm going to create a raving fan and win and say, hey, I went ahead and got you a fresh cheeseburger or a fresh chicken fish fillet, whatever it was. And then they go above and beyond, hey, I went out ahead and upgraded you and got you an apple pie, this, and this. And like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They found a problem and they created a raving fan of it. And some people are out there winning, absolutely winning in life and in business just because of those little things.
Not only that, we've talked about this previously, but I'll bring it up again, is we remember that 70% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So that person that fixed it in the drive-through, they also had a smile on their face and they were apologetic how they handled the situation. How many of us have been in a situation where something's happened and then the person has a piss-poor attitude and they're almost mad at you for bringing the issue up, and it's not your fault. So it's also what their demeanor looks like, how they attack that. And I'm going to roll that into a couple notes I made here. If an employee or a customer brings you an issue or a problem, don't be defensive and don't put a wall up. You need to remember, if a customer or an employee takes the time to come to your office, write you an email, or call you on the phone, it's because they care. It's because they care.
Yes.
And I remind our employees that. I'm like, if somebody filled out a survey, or especially if they called you or they took time to write an email, it's because they care about you being successful. If they didn't, their time's valuable, they'll just go to the competitor.
Yeah.
That employee would just turn in their 2 weeks and go to somebody else. They care, so quit being defensive about it and listen.
Yeah, and that's so good when, we say listen, like slow down and listen. But I have to go back to your nonverbal communication because it's a funny thing you see that, you might see a meme or something that says, hey, that's no worries. Like, hey, I'm okay with that. Like, that's not a big deal. It's like, oh, really? Does your face know that?
Mm-mm.
You know, you see that. It's like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, really? Does your face feel that way? Because your look on your face. So is your customer facing, whether that be you talking to the employee or your customer facing people talking to the customer, if there's an issue, you know, let's say you're in the landscaping business or you're in the power equipment business and you happen to drive through somebody's front yard and put huge ruts.
Happens.
It's an opportunity to create a raving fan, and you get, you know, you need to make sure that their face says, hey, I apologize. Thank you for being so calm. We're going to put the best sod and we're going to take great care of you. You know, but the nonverbal, you know, and golly, like, you've taken a whole lot of time to break down for the service advisors to understand that, because they already know what the fix is. When a customer comes in, it's like, slow down, have empathy.
It's all about the response.
Listen, you know, you can win in your setup. You know, and so it's so good. All right, so to wrap this thing up here, frequently asked questions. We always get rapid fire questions there. And so, Taylor, I'm going to start out with you. What's your favorite thing about the car business?
I'm going to say probably whenever I see success, and this is going to be a twofold, but whenever I see success from someone we've taught and brought up in the business, so into sales, into service, anything else, but then I flip it and I see, because normally we don't like handling heat or anything else, but I love supporting and backing up somebody when they have a customer problem and seeing a solution from it. So I love seeing somebody grow up in the business, do what they're supposed to be doing, still have that problem. And I love being able to come in and help that problem and back that customer or back that employee whenever they've grown up in the business. So love seeing that success.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, Matt, different question. If you could come in every day in the car business, which I know you do, but come in every day in the car business and do one thing, what would that one thing be?
Just one thing.
It's one thing.
Now that narrows it down. If I had to land the plane on one thing, and I was thinking about this question before you ask it, it would be to work with, and in my current position, I'm going to say managers, but to work with managers to find opportunities within their department, within the dealership, and train them on how to see that, how to put a game plan together, and then how to put that in place.
Be good.
Absolutely. I love that. So, key takeaways, and we kind of hit that with frequently asked questions. Any key takeaways you guys have from problem solving that you guys want to hit and share with the world?
My big thing there is to make sure that you train yourself as the leader to have the mindset of, if a problem or an issue comes up, do not throw a wall up. It's an area of opportunity for you to create a raving fan, Shelby, like you talked about, or for you to identify an area in your business where you need to grow in. So accept that and be welcoming if there is an issue, and teach your team how to problem solve and develop that culture.
Absolutely.
Love that. Taylor?
Yep. I would say culture. We've hit it all there, but I love it being deep, so embedded in that our culture, our positive mindset thinking. Shelby hit the nail on the head, but we get outside of work and people are like, can you just be real? Why do you have to be positive all the time? It's because it's baked into us. And I realize that is what makes us successful, what we're doing. So have that positive mindset thinking to where it bleeds off to others around you.
Yeah.
It's so good. I would say my number one takeaway is I love, and it's such a reminder, I love being able to show someone how to do something. And it's the understanding, and it's not to say, move out of the way, watch me do this. It's to more or less get involved with them and walk them through the process. And so then I say show, I should say go through the process with them. And so then I get to learn about them, about the process, and then I get to see what they're good at, how we can grow in that, and how our team continues to be better and better.
Yeah, that's great. That's great for sure. Well, thanks for joining us again for this episode this week with Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Remember, some of the stuff you heard on here, you could find in previous episodes too to dive into. So as always, give us those recommendations, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.